All right, welcome to another episode of Medicine Mondays. I'm your truly Dr. Pierre, your favorite board certified internist, host of the number one, obviously, YouTube show, podcast show for those who are overwhelmed by the healthcare system, underappreciated by the healthcare system, and are just looking for a voice of reason. This week, we got a special guest for you. I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk. So you love when I bring on guests, and I got a special one here for you. It comes from a referral from a guest who was a favorite guest of this show, Dr. Nee Darko. And this guy, Dr. Stephen Bradley, we're going to pick his brain. When I tell people all the time, probably some of the smartest physicians in our field are the anesthesiologists. I've said this time and time again, and we're going to pick his brain. Why? We're going to figure out who is Dr. Stephen Bradley. More importantly, what is a medical ethicist? I'm not even sure if I'm saying the word correctly, but really more importantly, what makes him tick, right? You know how we do here on the Lunch Learn community. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Dr. Bradley, first of all, thank you for joining this week on Medicine Mondays.
Dr. Pierre, thank you for having me. I honestly have not been on a lot of podcasts, so this is new territory. I'm learning a lot from you and what you're doing. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. You know, so funny, especially as a fellow podcaster, that's not unfamiliar territory, because a lot of times, like, we're so busy kind of doing our own that we be forgetting, like, oh yeah, let me go hop on and get on the other side of the camera. So it's actually not unfamiliar territory for sure. So talk to me about who is Dr. Stephen Bradley, because I know the Lunch Learn community is going to be like, all right, why does Dr. Barry want this guy on the show? Like, talk to me. Who's Dr. Stephen Bradley?
Yeah, man. I'm Steven. So my full story, grew up. You said you're in Florida. My dad actually retired in Florida. My parents are both from Florida, but my dad was in the Navy. So I moved around a bunch growing up. Eventually, he retired down there in Jacksonville, Florida. A long kind of work history. In high school, I had a bunch of jobs working construction. My first exposure to medicine was working at Shands Hospital, doing high voltage electrical work. That was a summer after college. And that's when I first saw a physician and kind of saw them coming into work. I said, man, I wonder if I can do that. A couple years later, I changed majors and got accepted to Howard University College of Medicine, where I went from there to the University of Chicago for anesthesia. I was pulled in by a desire to do critical care. And after that, went to the Navy for a couple of years because of my family. My brother's in the Navy, my dad's retired, and just got out and went back to Chicago actually for a critical care fellowship. That's the career me, but deep down inside, I am just a regular dude. I'm an average student, strong B plus, and I really love music. I like spending time with my wife. Been married for a couple of months at this point, and yeah, just living life, enjoying life.
Now, tell me, now was the military, was that something that you just, obviously with the family background, the familiarity around it, was that something you're like, all right, like, I'm gonna do this school thing and then also hit it, or was like, did that just kind of come into your own, or what? How did we end up there?
Yeah, so I always wanted to join the Navy. It's funny how like stuff just imprints on you when you're a kid. So seeing my dad come home in uniform every day, I'm like, yo, I've got to do this. And he never sat down and was like, I want you to do this. It was just that desire. So I kept going in school, got into medical school and whatnot, and wasn't able to join because of that. Meanwhile, my brother joined through ROTC in college. So by the time I finished med school and started residency, he was already on active duty. That's when I had that opportunity to join in residency. So the first question, people are, oh, so your loans are paid for? No, they got me for super cheap. They didn't pay for my student loans. People are listening like, yo, what's wrong with this? We think you made a mistake bringing him on the show because he can't be that smart. So I just had a little bit of bonus money in residency and then got severely underpaid for 4 years on active duty. Although the time did count towards public service loan forgiveness, got a couple years left in that. But yeah, people are like, oh, yo, so it's free. You have no loans. Like, not quite. It's not that simple.
Not quite. And what I love is that you kind of mentioned it where you say, you know what, I'm just like a regular student B plus. And the reason why I love you, I've talked about this on the show a lot, as far as, now again, I wish I could say I was only a B+ student. I had a couple of D's along the way, might have got an
But
F
she's
here
still
and
here.
there, right? Like,
She's still here.
I'm just being honest, right? And I'm still here. And I think especially for a lot of people, when they see people get to the pinnacle, right? Which for a lot of people, a doctor is the pinnacle of said career. They think that it was rosy. They think that it was so easy that we were just kind of coasting through. So I love when people are very open and say, like, hey, like, you can do this, and you don't necessarily have to be like nothing but straight A's and just all rosy pictures. So I lovely love
Yeah.
that aspect. Now, being
No,
open,
no.
that's not a normal trait. Being open,
No.
like, how did you get to that point where you're like,
I,
I'm cool with letting people know that, like, I wasn't this super student.
I just got kind of fed up with the fact that we want to show people like this facade or this thing that, like, I never struggled. I looked around, like, and I think we do it subconsciously, that we want to look like we have everything together. It's just natural that we don't want to show our flaws. And the more you look around, you're like, wait a minute, we're all human, so we all make mistakes. There's some people that are really good, they're on that far side of the spectrum where they're like pretty excellent. Then you got people that are on the other side that can't do anything right to save their lives. Most of us are in the middle, and we have issues and we have problems. And I'm very transparent. Like, if I'm on rounds with residents or as a fellow, if I make mistakes, like I own up to it and move along. And it's my hope that by showing this behavior, somebody else is like, yo, it's okay to be just a regular person. It's okay to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes, to kind of share my flaws, because we all have flaws, but within us all having flaws, we also all have strengths. And if we work together and kind of combine those, I personally think society as a whole would be in a much better spot.
Mm. And you talk about combining strengths. You mentioned that you really love music, but obviously, for those who typically say, you know what, I'm going to go the doctor route, a lot of things get kind of pushed to the back burner. How were you able to, I guess, keep music in that back pocket?
It gets pushed to the back burner. For me, we deal with what do we call it? Work-life balance. Everybody deals with
Mhm.
it differently. And for me, I can look back over from when I decided. I was a music major in college initially. And after that first
Okay.
year, yeah, I changed majors. And that's when I kind of closed the door on music for about a good 3 or 4 years. I was just
Mm.
studying, trying to get in medical school. I didn't have access to any instruments. I picked it back up when I was in medical school. Howard, we always got to be extra. We had a Howard University College of Medicine gospel choir. And man, you talk about a joyful noise. I don't even know if it was joyful. We made some noise,
Mm.
but I was able to get back in it and play. And I also played, twice a month at one of the churches in DC. So I would play keyboard, and I picked up bass guitar, and play. It'd be like 4 services on the weekend. So I tried to do that like twice a month.
You doing
And
this
yeah,
while
that took a
you were in school?
yeah in medical school.
Wow. Okay.
And the way I looked at it was like, I could really study hard, use all this time to study, and maybe I'll, honors or whatever, be a really good student, or I could be a pretty good student and then do all this other stuff, and I could look back and like have experiences and hone my skill and worship and do all those things. And so I've always like made it a point to like not go 100% for almost anything. I really don't. My wife and my marriage, 100%. But everything else in life, I try to like have a good balance. So that's what I did in medical school. And then residency hit in the first 2 years. I'm trying to figure it out. And there wasn't much music going on then. Then I joined the Navy. I got a little bonus check. I got a really nice keyboard, started playing again. So for me, it's just been this ebb and flow. And I look back and I could see, I know Malcolm Gladwell has a book talking about 10,000 hours. And I could see where I diverged from really good musicians. And if I put all this time and energy into music, perhaps I would have been excellent. Um, I'm a novice and I enjoy it, but because I'm a physician, I also have the funds to buy instruments that I like. It's not a crazy expensive habit or hobby, but if I want a music instrument, I'm gonna buy it, and now I can learn how to play it. So that's kind of how I've managed over the last 10 or 12 years to combine my love of music and the job of medicine.
So funny. I remember, growing up, I always had kind of two dreams. I'm a big fan of technology, big fan of computers, but I always knew I wanted to do medicine. Like it was just in the back of my mind. And I'm gonna ask you if you, because I didn't know if you had any, relatives or very close mentors that made you choose the medicine route. So like even as I was coming up in medicine, I'm listening to your story and I'm just putting myself in there. And for me, it wasn't necessarily music, but it was technology. It was like, all right, how can I use technology? How can I use computers around me? Because I still like doing the stuff, even though I jokingly, I talk to my wife all the time, where sometimes I say like, oh yeah, that's right. I do medicine. Like I almost feel like the medicine is just there, but like everything else, like I'm a tech nerd, like outside this medicine stuff, I tell people. So I love that. And I think it's an important message because, and I used to tell my medical students, my residents all the time, like, guys, like you got to have a life outside of these hospital doors. Is so extremely important. Why? Because medicine has no problem taking every inch, every minute, every second from you if you give it. Like it's greedy. It's greedy in that sense. It'll like, oh, you want to keep giving? All right. You want to like not talk to your friends? Okay. You ain't not talking to your family? Okay, I'll take that too. Like it'll do it. And it takes people to say, you know what? Like I'm cool on that. I'm going to do what I actually love as well, because I know it's not 100%. Like I have to dedicate all of my life to it. So I do love that fact that you're able to explore and say, you know what? I'm gonna make this reservation right now. I like I like the medicine thing, but I also like the music thing as well. And I'm gonna dedicate as much time as the music thing. Not as much time as I want, but I'm gonna dedicate as much free time as I can to get over there. And so I love that balance or that trying to work the balance, because again, this in the ideal world it'll be 50-50, but obviously medicine takes this, at least for me, sometimes 55%, a little bit 60. But I'm able to get what I love out there. So I do love that aspect. Do you think that was to the benefit of you, especially when you look back and kind of where you're at now, saying that like I'm so glad I did some of my music stuff when I did it?
Absolutely. Because when I look back on medical school, I worked hard, and don't get it twisted. I think we all have shed tears at some point in our medical education and journey. But the other memories, I say there's always like quotes that people say that nobody really listens to. Like, if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. Or you got to enjoy the journey. Is about the journey at the destination. So a couple, I don't know, randomly, I just thought about these super simple sayings and decided to like think about it and internalize it and really focus on enjoying that journey. So when I look back on my time at Howard, first of all, I was at Howard, so that was a whole another thing.
Yes.
But
for anyone who's been to Howard, yeah.
But the other memories I have are playing keyboard in my church and playing with our worship team and playing bass and playing our gospel choir and just practicing music. And those memories kind of just go right along with each of those like ups and downs and those good, happy memories and the not so happy memories that I have from my time. And I can think about how good I was at playing the keyboard back then. And then am I better now than I was then? Am I progressing? What other instruments have I learned along the way? So for me, I love like being able to look back and see this journey that runs parallel with this career of medicine.
And when we talk about it, I kind of I'm loving the segue. You like I say, you must be a podcaster because you're great at the segue. When we talk about medicine, a lot of people, and we kind of highlighted that, for a lot of people, medicine is this thing that this career, this job that they go to. For others, it's like, all right, like I've always wanted to do. It's like their calling. I've always wanted to do medicine. Like, how do you kind of internalize your journey and actually active journey within medicine?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something I've had on my mind for a long time. I don't know if this will go viral or not, or if people are gonna blow up my inboxes. But this debate always comes up Like, they say stuff, medicine is for those people that could not possibly see themselves doing anything else. And I 100% reject that theory. I personally view medicine as a career, and I approach it with a sense of professionalism, not necessarily altruism. Obviously, it takes some altruism, but in my mind, if I am doing medicine purely out of altruism, what happens when I have that patient that just ticks me off and my altruism just leaves? What happens 5 years down the road, or when you hit a pandemic, you just get burned out, your altruism leaves? I approach medicine from a sense of professionalism, that as a physician, I'm going to study hard. I'm going to know my patient inside and out. I'm going to deliver the best care possible for me. And I view it as my duty, my job as a professional, as a healthcare professional, to do these things. And I think that's the difference in the way I approach it, and therefore I can do my best. There's going to be some good outcomes. There's going to be some bad outcomes. If there's a bad outcome, I look at what could I have done differently. Was this a mistake I made? How can I keep this from happening again in the future? And if I have done everything to the best of my ability based upon my training, I will not necessarily internalize that. I think we all have those bad outcomes of maybe a young patient that just shouldn't have turned out that way, and it just weighs on you. And yeah, there's those. But at the end of the day, I sit down and think like, okay, what could I have done better? I did everything to the best of my ability. All right, cool. And then I'm out. I'm at home. I'm playing guitar. I go back tomorrow.
I love it. And reason why is, and you kind of alluded to this pandemic. And we've talked, obviously, on this show, this series, we kind of talk about how just kind of the system overwhelms and underappreciate those affected by it. And no group of people is that truer in when I talked about my physician colleagues. And we talk about burnout, and we talk about running into a system that we thought loved us, but don't really love us as much as we love it. So when we start talking about the next step, when we start talking about, all right, what am I going to do outside of this? Sometimes, and you kind of mentioned those people who think that physicians should only look at it from this altruistic position. They're like, oh, well, you must not really love the game. Like, you know how that goes. You don't really love us like that. You don't really love medicine like that. If you're like ready to go off and pursue other ventures. I tell people all the time, like I'm about to turn 40 soon. My goal is to try to retire from medicine by 45, by mindset and other reasons. But I like to have that goal just so I can think, like, because I don't want to do this until I'm 60. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like I see my colleagues who are 50 and 60 and closer to that, and they don't look happy doing this. I don't want to do that when I'm 50 and 60 plus, having to do medicine. So yes, I'm going to look and pursue other opportunities because medicine is my job. Like that's what it is. Like, yes, I love medicine. Yes, I love taking care of people, but medicine is a job. Like it pays me because I donate my skills. If I didn't donate my skills, medicine wouldn't pay me. So I'm right. That's why I loved your question, because I was like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this, is because I think it is a conversation that we don't have enough of, especially to our pre-meds and our medical students who may come in with this idea like, okay, I used to be a former program director, so I read a lot of personal statements. Everyone is about the care and the love and we want to take, and I'm like,
because they want to get in. They try to get in.
And I'm like, that's cool and all, but like, all right, what happens when they don't really love you back like that? And the nights is tough, and you're working and you're not really seeing the conversation that you're generating. Like, what happens then? Like, is it really about the love, or is it about the career? And that's when people really start recognizing, like, oh yeah, this is a business, true. So I do love that you mentioned that, because I think the overall theme, and especially when I talk to my physician colleagues who do other things outside of medicine, which I love, like I say, because I'm And I'm like y'all, I'm sneaky with it, right? Like I'm not necessarily I'm not really sneaky with it, but like I probably talk more about the stuff I do outside of medicine more than I do the medicine stuff. If not for
What you
like me
mean?
having this
We see
show here,
you. We see you on YouTube, brother. We see the
yes,
books you writing in the background.
yeah. So like so we go like we're going to work here. We're going to, but I like doing it, and I'm like, oh, that's why I also happen to be a doctor, right?
Yeah.
I just came from a conference, digital marketing conference, because those are the
Really?
type of conferences I go to, right? Like when to the
Hmm.
point where when I got to go to a medical conference, I'm like, oh, like I gotta go to one of these medical conferences again. I got like the
CMEs.
energy is just not the same, and I think more and more of us, especially as we become more prominent, especially as social media becomes, wrapped within our career, we have
Hmm.
to be open enough to say that, because there's a lot of people who look at me, who look at you, and say like, man, like I see what Dr. Barry doing, I see what Dr. Steven doing, man, and they don't look as stressed as these other guys over here, and I'm trying to get like them.
Yeah. No, and I told like I went back to fellowship like I mentioned. So I'm in the ICU. I told these folks every day. I said, I come to work for entertainment. I come here, socialize. I'm gonna do some good medicine. I'm gonna enjoy what I'm doing here today. And yeah, I'm gonna paycheck. I need to pay the bills. I need to finish this fellowship so I can go on and keep it pushing. But I honestly try to, like I said before, enjoy the journey. And if you're not enjoying whatever it is you're doing, then it's kind of on you. You got to sit there and figure out, what is it that's keeping you in that horrible surgical job at the hospital that's
Mm,
undervaluing you.
mm,
What is it that's keeping you there? Is it, you got to pay for your kids' tuition, you got a big old mortgage, there's something, and at some point there's a break even point that this isn't worth it, and you need to change that situation for your happiness. Or maybe you're not there yet, and you're good. You're going to grind out a couple more years. That's cool too. But I always try to see, am I happy doing this? And if not, what can I change?
Now, I'll ask a question, right? Because especially because I know my wife listens to this show, right? So she loves her credit.
Yeah, be careful.
How has the wife been in regards to making sure you stay grounded? Because it sounds like you were already kind of like grounded before, but like, how has your wife been in making sure that that kind of remains steadfast?
Man, I got so lucky with my wife. She's from New York. The New York in her is strong, but despite that fact, she is a gem. She's a blessing, and she keeps me grounded. She is extremely down to earth. We have a very similar outlook on how we spend our money. I'm frugal. And she's more frugal, which is fantastic. Like
Yes.
we enjoy the same things. We're very, very simple people. We focus on the things that we like to do, spend time together. We like to eat. We like to watch Netflix, and we travel. We're neither of us are into designer clothes or nice cars or expensive houses, and I think that has really allowed us. She'll laugh because I'm really into minimalism, and she's like, "How are you a minimalist when you have 12 instruments?" But that's another conversation. Um, but we both have our interests and our hobbies, and they kind of keep us all in the same area, and we enjoy each other's company. And I've just been super blessed that we're both on the same wavelength. So yeah, she and if I get too big, she that New York comes out, and she's like, remember you're from. Our favorite thing to say is, yeah, I'm from New York and he's from a farm.
Hey.
That just puts me back, reminds me from whence I came. So
That is that is funny. So I want to ask a question, right? And you kind of alluded to, but like especially for those who are following, those who are looking, how does someone who is looking at the footsteps of Dr. Stephen Bradley say, how do I combine my career and my passion? Like what is the thought process that it takes to say, you know what? Yep, I'm gonna do this medicine thing, but I'm also gonna do my instruments, right? For someone who has the music thing or the thing that's outside that they know they should be doing as well. But for some reason, this medicine thing or whatever their career, they don't have to be medicine, but whatever their career thing is trying to take up all of their time. Like what type of advice would you give?
Yeah,
For this
I would say this goes back to kind of that concept of minimalism, and it's minimalism isn't just getting rid of all your stuff. It's focusing on what truly brings you happiness and limiting kind of the what you put your interest in to those one, two, or three things. So for me, it's really just music and art are the two things that I kind of like do that take up money and time. And that's all. I cut out sports. I cut out, I don't really follow pop culture. And that allows me to more fully invest myself into work when I'm at work. And when I'm home, I'm either relaxing or doing something that I enjoy. And it's okay to say no. If I got friends that want to go do something that I'm not really into, I'm probably not going to go do that. So it takes kind of whatever time that you have. We all have 24 hours in a day, and then you focus it on what truly brings you pleasure, not what makes you look like you're super cool and you have everything together and like keep up with the Joneses kind of with your time, right? What do you really enjoy? And that's what I've focused on for probably the last like eight years or so. And same thing with work. What do you like about your job? Where are you trying to get to? And it's not about doing the least amount, but it is about doing what's essential. That was another book I read, Essentialism, learning to say no. And if this isn't going to help you get to where you want to be in your career or in your life, really think long and hard about do you really want to do this? And then just say no. And the first couple of pages of the book mention you will initially feel like you're letting your teammates down, you're not supporting them, but eventually there's a shift where they realize that, oh, Dr. Pierre, yeah, if he's really interested in something, he's going to do a really good job in it because he says no to everything else. It's almost like a kind of a
I
reversal.
like that.
So that's what I've tried to do. Obviously, I'm far from perfect and there's still learning every day, but I really try to just focus on letting go of things that I don't care about and focusing on the things that I do.
And I'd be remiss to not have a fellow podcaster on the show and not talk about like their podcast, right? So before I get you out of here, let's talk about the Black Doctors podcast, right? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the brainchild and like how that kind of came into fruition and kind of in the world.
Well, we got to pull in the Godfather, Dr. D. Darko. He posted something. He posted something on Instagram. I told a story on his show every time because I believe in giving credit where credit's due. 2020, he posted why every physician needs to have a podcast. And I'm like, yo, that's wild. It's crazy. Why does every physician need okay, dude, you just want my like, let me go read your post. I'm gonna like your post. And then I went to his website and I'm reading, and he talked about building a platform and doing all this other stuff. So mind you, I'm in the Navy at this point in time. I honestly wasn't working that much because the case volume wasn't super high in the Department of Defense hospitals. So I would be on call. I would do a 24-hour call and do like one or two anesthetics. So it's kind of a waste of time. But I signed up. I swore into the Navy, so this is what it is for 4 years, right? I live life without regrets. I put myself here, so I'm just going to suck it up and waste my time in-house for 24 hours. And so I started thinking, like, what can I do at this time? Social media is blowing up. I don't really do the TikTok dances. I can't really do the viral photos. Like, it's just not me. And as I looked at the medical influencers and looked at these people that were living their best life, going to coffee shops and these matching scrubs and all these other like fancy trapping. I'm like, yo, that's not the med school that I went to. I remember when my only dinner was my mom would send me care packages, and I'm like, oh, like I don't want care packages, mom. I want to go to happy hour in DC. But one day I was so broke and didn't have any food in the house. I went digging and found that care package, and she had an envelope of chicken noodle soup. not chicken. It was a French onion soup. It was in a little like a Lipton's packet. You just add water and
And good to
microwave.
go.
So I boiled that soup. I found some old hamburger buns and made garlic bread from that joint.
Okay.
So I'm looking, I'm looking at
That's an
these menu
ingenuity. I like
courses.
that. Like that's like, oh no, we gonna do something with this here.
Oh, he's down bad. But I look at, I'm like, yo, this isn't the experience that I had in medical school, and I worry that for people that are coming up, like I mentioned, showing your flaws and being okay with not being perfect. So for a lot of people, that's going to be off-putting to them. They're going to say, I could never be that. I don't have the money to have these scrubs. Like it's going to, worsen imposter syndrome and it just make you feel like you don't belong. I said, you know what? I want to share my experiences in medicine. How do I do that? I don't have that many people or followers on Instagram. I can post some stuff, but it's going to disappear. I can do a YouTube channel. I could do. So I really thought about it and kept going back to Nee Darko's post, and I said, okay, let me figure out this podcast thing. So I read and read and read, and I thought about the title, and I said, I really want to encourage Black medical students to come in to the healthcare professions. And you know that the title of your podcast is very important. And I was like, the Black dot. Is it too on the nose? And I'm like, no, it's for I want, everybody can listen to it, but I want to encourage future Black physicians, future Black healthcare professionals. So that's where the concept of Black Doctors Podcast was born. And every Monday, I just share the story of an underrepresented medicine minority healthcare professional. Typically, I've done different episodes on contract negotiation and different panel interviews, and just kind of mixing it up. And every Monday, I've had a episode, and it's been just over 2 years. I do all the music for this show. We were talking about this before we started recording. I do all the music. I do all the editing because again, that's something that I enjoy. But it is a lot of work. So we might have to connect and get your a blueprint after this. But
Yes.
yeah, check it out. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. The Black Doctors Podcast, because representation matters.
I love it. And it's one of those things where a lot of times when we're trying to kind of find our voice. Now, mind you, Lunch Learning community members, y'all already know I'm probably like the last person to be talking because I'm like on every social media thing. But like I promise, like it's because I like doing the thing. I like doing that tech thing. I think it's kind of fun. So of course, but I love, and again, it's so funny. I don't even realize if Dr. Nee Darko realizes how many podcasts have started from his like drive and goal. I said because the only reason why I'm doing a Lunch Learn with Dr. Barry is because I'm like, if this surgeon can like, and I hate that I said it like that, but like if this surgeon could do a podcast, I could do a podcast. Like,
yeah,
surgeon. That's how I used to look at it. I'm like, all right, this surgeon got a podcast. Yeah, I do a podcast too. And it's so funny because when we're all just trying to find our voice and our message and our way, and just trying to figure out how to do that, being able to say like, all right, yep, this is the median that I'm going to use, and I'm going to be unapologetic, right? This is the Black Doctors Podcast. Like, it is what, like, stop it. Like, this is what we do here. And so I just love everything about it. And again, that's why I was like, nah, Lunch Learn community, we got to get Dr. Bradley on the show because I need him to kind of not only for you to hear his story, but more importantly, hear the message. Because again, it's not all rosy when you get to the top. A lot of times there's a lot of bumps, a lot of times there's a lot of bruises, a lot of obstacles and things that kind of get in the way. But it's those who say, you know what, despite all those things, I'm going to get here my way. So that's why I, again, absolutely love everything you do. And I'm a big supporter. I tell people all the time, I'm also a big stalker as well too. So typically for my guests, like I'll be following my guests for like months, just watching them.
Oh,
I'm like, see what this guy's doing over like that. So I'm just like, see what this guy's doing over here. Yeah, he'll be good guess. He'll be good guess. Like, and then then I slide through DM. I'm big on that because I do love it. But more importantly, I watch with affirmation because I love the fact that like, all right, yep, someone else who is just another leading example of another different way you can do it. And I
Yeah.
think that is the most important thing for me, that there's so many different ways to do it. It does not have to be this cookie cutter. You got to get straight A's. If you get one B or you get one C, go ahead and, forget medicine, which we've been told, and
Hmm.
understanding that there's so many different ways to do it. And as long as you enjoy doing what you do, you can get to where you want to get to.
I think I one question. What do you use on your beard, brother?
Oh, so
I'm
I
trying to
use
get like you.
shout out to my homeboy, Velton Showell, clean and unshaven. He has like beard butter and all. Like, I'll put his link in the show notes
Mm,
description. Yeah, clean and unshaven. He's got a little
there we
beard
go.
butter, beard oil. He got a little, support the black businesses. So before we let you go, like, where can people find Dr. Bradley? Obviously, your podcast available on all podcast platforms. Like, give them details, and obviously, and remember, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, it will be in the description. If you're listening to it on the podcast, it will be in the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah. So the Black Nerds Podcast is the show. There's also a website you can go. You can actually hit a voice note and we can include that in an episode of the show. My website is stephenbradleymd.com, and there's a couple blog posts there. I'm most active on Instagram at Stephen Bradley MD. That is a collection. Like, I'm the furthest thing probably from a med influencer. You're probably going to see a lot of my music. Buy my mixtape. No, I'm kidding. There's no mixtape, but you're going to see
Hold
a
on,
lot of just
honestly,
random.
I was about to ask. I'm like, I didn't hear a Spotify link drop. Like, hold on, now what's going on? Like, we gotta put the 2 feet in, right? If we like let's go now.
It's a work in progress. Hopefully, I'll drop a lo-fi album in the next year. But yeah, you'll see kind of just a day in the life. Like, I don't really do any it's not a very curated feed, is what I guess I'm trying to say. And then I'm on Twitter, Stephen Bradley MD. Still not super happy about that app. Just gets so toxic so quick. So mostly I'm on Instagram, and you can follow me there and just vibe.
We could probably talk for days. That it's yeah. Again, there's a good and bad with social media, right? And we could probably talk for days, especially when you start being vocal about who you are. There's a lot of people who will let you
Yeah.
know, like, hold on, relax, buddy. Right, relax. So again, Dr. Bradley, first of all, I want to say on behalf of the Lunch Learning community, Medicine Monday watchers, we appreciate your story. We appreciate, your gift of being open, as well as the message that, again, like, you can do what you want to do, even when you have this big, gorilla of a career of medicine or business or whatever you want to do, but not to forget the things that you actually love, because that's what's going to get you, going every single day when you're like, all right, medicine tripping right now, but you know what? I still got the music, right? That's what's going to get you there, instead of you being out here burnt out, upset, stressed, and then not only putting the stress on yourself, putting the stress on your family members, your friends, and more importantly, the patients.
Yeah. Dr. Pierre, thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed this chat.
Thank you.